Let's continue here now. The first quarter crime statistics released by Police Minister Nicolette on Friday show that mostly women and children were targeted in the crimes committed. Now, Nicolette referred to the first quarter as especially brutal for women and children. Nicolette revealed that more than 10,000 people were raped in South Africa and that almost half of the cases, a staggering 4,653 rapes, took place at the home of the rape victim or the home of the rapist. For reaction to the crime stats, we are now joined via Zoom by Nicolette Pingo, Program Manager for Inclusive Cities. Nicolette, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps let's firstly get your reaction to these crime stats, increasingly, staggeringly high, and yet again it shows how women and children are the most affected.
Thank you so much, Anati. So I can't say that we are surprised, unfortunately, by the increases reported by Police Minister Nicolette today. At the South African Cities Network, we are preparing just next week to launch our State of Crime and Safety Report 2021. And the report really does highlight that unfortunately the pandemic has affected urban safety trends and crime statistics, and that these lockdown restrictions played a role in reducing most types of crime, especially during level 4 and 5 of lockdown. However, with the easing of restrictions, the upward trends in serious violent crimes has really continued. And partially this is also because we know that the law enforcement capacity required to enforce lockdown regulations also had an impact on police members' ability to really respond in a targeted approach to crime in our cities.
I mean, let's look at just, some of, the worrying crime stats that we are seeing. Murder and attempted murder up by more than 22%. Rape and sexual offenses, as I said, up by 13%. A big jump, up to 31% in cash in transit robberies, car and as well as truck jacking. But of those concerning ones, you've touched on, the rape, the sexual assault cases. Kidnappings also on the increase. What can you tell us about that? I mean, in South Africa, you hear of these, crimes being committed as it relates to kidnapping, especially when we speak about children, which ultimately leads to human trafficking. Talk to us about how concerned we should be about this increase, more than 100%.
So I think it's definitely a cause for concern, and it aligns very much with the findings of our report, which indicate that it's undeniable that crime really affects the most vulnerable in our society. So in particular, in disadvantaged spaces, children, women are most affected by crime, such as kidnapping, such as sexual assault, such as murder. So it really does align, unfortunately, to our report, and it speaks to the need to really provide a comprehensive approach to dealing with crime and violence in our South African society and dealing with many of the developmental issues which we struggle with, in particular in our urban areas.
You mentioned that the role COVID-19 also had to play. Talk to us about, just taking back from what the minister said in relation to just, the socio-economic problems that we are currently facing, how much of an impact, that has been in these crime statistics. I mean, I don't want us to obviously just look at, what the key drivers are in as far as just this quarter, but to look at a trend, a consistent trend, how much of a role does that play in as far as what Minister Nicolette said?
So I think it plays a really, really important role. And the way in which I'm going to respond is to respond spatially. So We know, for example, murders only take place, really the highest rates take place in around 11% of wards nationally in the country. So that speaks to crime really happening in particular parts of our country. And the reason why that's happening is because our cities largely remain spatially segregated, with those on the economic margins really not able to participate more within urban life and be able to really see the fruits of democracy. So spatial segregation, poorly managed urbanization, inequality, social exclusion, high unemployment, especially among the youth, lack of access to essential services and economic opportunities. We really do see alignment with spaces that suffer from these social economic issues having higher crime rates.
I mean, to your point, we know that, the Eastern Cape has the highest murder rate per capita, 15.7, followed by the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. But the police stations where most murders were reported were in KZN, Umlazi, Inanda, and Plesisle, to be more specific. If we had to then, preempt what is likely to happen in the second quarter, what are the key things that you think we can do now to start seeing those numbers go down ever so slightly?
Thank you. I think that's a really, really important question. So at the South African Cities Network, we run the Urban Safety Reference Group together with our partners, the Violence Prevention Program with GIZ. And what we really focus on is working with cities to mainstream plan safety in all aspects of planning. So what does that mean? It means that it's the responsibility of every department within government to look at safety in design of our public spaces. Minister Cele also highlighted the number of crimes which happen, unfortunately, on our streets, in our parks, at public transport facilities. So we need to be looking at cities, at designing in a way that prevents crime. We obviously need to be looking at opportunities to increase employment, in particular for the youth. And we need to be looking as a society at our inequality, as global studies have really demonstrated an alignment between inequality and crime stats. So these are socioeconomic issues that we need the whole of government and all of society to be tackling to try and see some of a decrease in the numbers in the next quarter.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. That's where we have to leave it for now. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.